He called me to gloat about selling our house. But he didn't know the only thing he really sold was his entire future. When the call came, I was standing in line at the airport Starbucks, one hand on my suitcase and the other scrolling through emails. I didn't even check the caller ID. I just answered out of habit. "Hey, babe," I said automatically, but the voice on the other end wasn't warm or familiar. It was cold, clinical, triumphant. "I'm divorcing you," my husband Daniel said, "and I've already sold the house. Hope you enjoy figuring out where you're gonna live." I froze, the noise around me fading to static. The barista called out someone's name, but I didn't hear mine. My mouth went dry. "What?" I asked, not because I didn't hear him, but because I couldn't believe it. He laughed. Not nervously, not awkwardly. No. It was the smug, self-satisfied kind of laugh that made your blood boil. "I said I'm divorcing you. Sold the house already. Closed this morning. Pretty slick, right?" I could barely breathe. This wasn't just betrayal. This was warfare. Daniel and I had been together for 8 years. Married for 5. We'd bought that house together, built it from the ground up. Every tile, every light fixture, every paint swatch chosen by the two of us. "You sold the house?" I said, trying to keep my voice even. "Without me?" "Yeah, I figured you'd freak out. But, I needed the money. Jess and I are moving to Miami. She deserves a fresh start." There it was. Jess. The woman I'd suspected for months but never confirmed. The gym trainer, the coworker, the old friend. Now she was the future, and I was just the roadkill left behind. "You can't sell the house," I said, my voice steady now. "I already did," he said, still smug. "Got the deposit this morning. You'll get your notice when the divorce papers arrive. Enjoy the red-eye." I didn't say another word. I just hung up. If he wanted to play games, I was done playing nice. The thing is, Daniel had always underestimated me. I was the quiet one in the relationship. The planner, the fixer, the one who made things run. He thought because I didn't shout or slam doors, I wouldn't fight back. But he was wrong. Very, very wrong. Because what Daniel didn't know was this. I'd had the house deed quietly updated into my name alone 3 months ago. I'd done it after refinancing, just as a safety measure. Something my lawyer had suggested after he missed 2 mortgage payments without telling me. I'd paid the fees, filed the paperwork, and Daniel had signed the documents without even reading them, like he always did. He didn't read them then, and he sure didn't read them now. So, technically, legally, he had just committed fraud, and I was about to burn his whole world to the ground. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even finish my coffee. Instead, I walked straight to the airport lounge, pulled out my laptop, and called Melissa, my best friend and my lawyer. When she answered, I didn't waste time. "Daniel called. He says he sold the house." There was a pause, then the sound of keys clicking. "He what?" "Says he closed on it this morning. Told me I need to figure out where I'm going to live." She exhaled sharply. "He can't sell something that isn't his." "Exactly," I said. "The deed's in my name. He just doesn't know it." Melissa went silent for a moment, then, "Oh, we are going to have so much fun with this." I smiled for the first time that day. Melissa explained what would happen next. First, we'd contact the buyer and alert them to the invalid sale. Then, we'd send Daniel a formal cease and desist. And a lovely reminder that unauthorized real estate transactions? That's not just messy. It's criminal. Fraud. That word had never tasted so sweet. By the time I boarded my flight, we'd already drafted the legal notices. I sat back, closed my eyes, and let the turbulence rock me into clarity. Daniel thought I'd roll over. He thought I'd cry, maybe beg. He didn't know that while he was daydreaming about beachfront cocktails with his side piece, I was already working on taking everything from him. Legally, surgically, with every ounce of the calm vengeance I'd learned to weaponize. When I landed, Melissa's message was waiting. Buyer contacted. Furious. Deal dead. Tyler's probably finding out now. Perfect. I got home around midnight. The house, my house, was dark, silent. Daniel's keys still worked, apparently. His shoes were by the door. His gym bag was slung on the chair. But the silence? That was mine now. The next morning, he stormed in like a man who just realized his world wasn't as secure as he thought. "What the hell is this?" he shouted, waving Melissa's letter. "That," I said calmly, sipping my coffee, "is the sound of your scheme falling apart." "You can't do this. I already closed. The money was never yours to claim," I cut in. "The deed's been in my name for months. You signed the transfer yourself." His mouth opened, then closed. He looked like a fish gasping for breath in open air. "You tricked me." "No," I said. "You ignored me. You ignored every conversation, every warning, every sign that I was done letting you run the show. You sold a house you didn't own. You took money that wasn't yours. Now you're going to pay the price." He started pacing, muttering about lawyers, about calling someone, about how this wasn't fair. I stood, walked over, stared him down. "You don't live here anymore. You don't decide what's fair, and you definitely don't get to play the victim." He glared at me. "I gave you everything." I laughed. "You gave me a reason to fight." That afternoon, Melissa filed the first batch of divorce paperwork. We froze any accounts he had access to. And the buyer? They were already exploring charges. One of their lawyers called me directly to thank me for the heads up, and to inform me they'd be pursuing Daniel for breach of contract and attempted fraud. Daniel's life was unraveling. Mine was just beginning. For the next few days, Daniel was a ghost trapped in his own mess. He wandered around the house like a man who'd woken up in a nightmare of his own design. His voice, once cocky and cutting, had gone quiet. Now it was just the occasional slammed door, the heavy sigh from across the hall, the faint tapping of his phone as he scrambled to fix a mistake he never saw coming. Meanwhile, I was on the warpath, calm, collected, and 5 steps ahead. Melissa worked with the buyer's attorney to lock down a timeline. Daniel had forged documents, the sale papers, the authorization to close. There was even a fake email pretending to be from me. That alone was enough to turn his financial disaster into a legal time bomb. He'd been so desperate to impress Jess, to build this fantasy life in Miami, that he never paused to check the details. And now, the fantasy was burning down around him. I'll never forget the moment he brought her to the house. I was sitting in the dining room, going over some paperwork, when the front door opened, and there she was. Heels, sunglasses, lips that curled in amusement when she looked around. "This is the place?" she asked him. He nodded, beaming. "Home sweet home." I stood slowly. "Actually," I said, "you're in my home. Neither of you should be here." Jess blinked. "Excuse me?" Daniel stepped forward. "Amelia, don't do this. You're making this more dramatic than it needs to be." "No," I said, my voice sharp as glass. "What's dramatic is selling a house you don't own, stealing money to impress your girlfriend, and then showing up like you're entitled to playhouse here." Jess looked at him. "Wait, what is she talking about?" I crossed my arms. "Tell her, Daniel. Tell her who the house belongs to." He didn't answer. "She's lying, right?" Jess asked, her voice rising. He still didn't answer. So I did it for him. He forged my name on the closing paperwork. But the title? It's in my name. He tried to sell a house he had no claim to, and now he's facing criminal charges. Jess's perfect posture faltered. Is that true? She hissed at him. He tried to whisper something. She didn't wait to hear it. Jess turned, heels clicking hard against the floor as she stormed out, muttering something about not signing up for this mess. Daniel stood there, watching the door, jaw clenched. Then he turned to me. You're enjoying this? I looked him dead in the eye. Number, but I earned this. That night, he begged me to talk, not to get back together. We were past that. But to just work something out. I told him the only thing we were working out was a timeline for him to get his crap out of my house. By the end of the week, it was all gone. The jerseys, the gaming console, even the tacky leather recliner I'd always hated. He moved in with a buddy who had a futon and a Wi-Fi password. The man who laughed when he tried to leave me with nothing? Now he had less than that. The silence after he left was deafening. Not lonely, just still, peaceful. Like the house itself had exhaled after holding its breath for too long. His cologne had faded from the sheets. The floor didn't creak at midnight under his late-night pacing. His name wasn't attached to any of the bills, keys, or passwords anymore. It was just me now, and I wasn't afraid of that. Melissa called a few days later with the final updates. The buyer had officially filed a claim for damages. The DA was considering options on the fraud charges. And Daniel? He'd been advised by his own lawyer to settle the divorce quietly, or risk everything blowing up in court. I agreed to a clean split. No alimony, no further financial ties. The house was mine. The accounts were frozen. He left with what he came in with? Nothing but charm and an ego. He texted me once. I miss you. We made a good team. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was tempted, not even close, but because it reminded me just how blind I'd been. We didn't make a good team. I was the team. I carried the weight, paid the bills, made the compromises, believed in a future that he used as a stepping stone for someone else, but never again. I didn't reply. Instead, I went into my bedroom and opened the windows, let the light in, repainted the walls, moved the furniture around, bought myself the softest, most expensive comforter I could find. And then I did something I hadn't done in years. I smiled just because I could, because I had my freedom, because I'd outsmarted a man who thought he could toss me aside and walk off into the sunset. He thought I'd fall apart, but I rebuilt, stronger, wiser, louder. And when I stood in that living room, glass of wine in hand, and looked around at the space that no longer felt like a battlefield, I didn't see the scars. I saw the victory. Epilogue. Months later, I ran into Jess at the grocery store. She didn't recognize me at first. I'd changed. Happier, healthier, lighter. But then her eyes widened. You're her, she said. I nodded. She leaned in, almost a whisper. You destroyed him. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just said, no. He did that all by himself. And I walked away,